ball. So just
excellent. Excellent. That'll be perfect. That's right. Well, that's just got up and going now. So what I need to do is same as I think you sometimes do, isn't it? We create another one. There's a bit of noise in the background. Let's see if we can sort that out.
Yeah, that's me. No, that's me.
Oh, is that you?
That's, if I don't get rid of them, they'll sit here and do it the whole damn time.
Yeah. That could be me as well, though. No, there we go. There we go. You can still hear me, can you?
Yes. Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Good. Yep. That's fine. Excellent. So that's us going live here. So what I can do is I can go back to this one here, and I can just sort of minimize, slightly reduce my screen, and that way I can keep an eye on both on us and on any chat that we might have.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, guys, I suppose the thing we must talk about first of all, because it is obviously such a big thing, is how is our team doing in the Cricket World Cup?
Our team.
Well, yeah. Ask your guy there to the other guy. How's our team doing in the Cricket World Cup, dude?
Yeah.
Would you care to share an opinion of how Australia are doing in the World Cup?
Oh,
who are you talking to?
Yeah,
to
I think he's
Mark,
talking
that
to me.
guy,
the guy that doesn't watch it. Yeah.
I doubt whether, despite the fact that he's got that big Aussie flag, he is aware of any of the Cricket World Cup going on. I doubt whether they have it on Crunch Island.
They don't have it in the U.S. really. No. Well, I'm sure there's probably some obscure cable stations that might have it occasionally, but not. Yeah, it's not mainstream here.
Well, it's going to be. There's going to be in the next couple of years. There's going to be a T20 tournament held in the USA. And what you've got to bear in mind is that you've got a huge potential audience, particularly of Asian people, people from Asian descent, that are very, very interested in cricket. Cricket is the big sport in likes of India in particular.
Right.
But anyway,
well, you know. When the British controlled 3/4 of the world for a pretty long time, you know, that kind of stuff happens.
Yeah.
That's right.
We only did what the Romans did all those thousands of years ago. You know.
And of course, the Americans totally rebelled and wouldn't have a bar of cricket at the time of their revolution, right? So.
Yeah, but I'm kind of left thinking about Life of Brian, where they say and what have the Romans ever done for us? and it's like, what have the British ever done for us? Well, okay, there are certain aspects of what the British did for the world that maybe weren't very good, but there was one or two things that they did that was excellent. But anyway, enough about that. Tell us about the cricket, Mark. How did Australia get on against arch rivals England on Tuesday?
Not unexpectedly, they whooped them. So and now, even better than beating them, now England themselves, the favourites for the tournament, are now in a precarious position of whether they'll even get into the semi-finals. So that's even more interesting. So.
I don't know if you know about this. This is really spooky. But back in 1992, when England were in the final against Pakistan, and the finals were held in Australia, when Pakistan won the World Cup, the one and only time they had Imran Khan and Wasim Akram and a few other big names they had back there. I think Javed Miandad. When they won it, their record for their first 7 matches then is exactly the same as their record in the same order this year.
Is that right?
The ones they lost, the ones they drew, the ones that were rained off. The record reads exactly the same. That every single match they've had this year has had the same result as back in 1992. Now, is that weird or what?
Yeah, you know what? I think that a similar sort of
you got to go all the way back to 1992, so I'm somewhat less impressed.
So, Paul, the World Cup of cricket in its current format has been going around, I think, 40-something years, 44 years.
Well, the first one, yes, that's right, 1975, spot on.
So there's been 11 World Cups, right?
Yep.
Just remind everyone how many of those World Cups England have won.
None.
Oh, is that right? And how many have Australia won?
5.
Thank you. And who's won the most?
Australia.
Thank you.
including 3 in a row.
Yes. Well, thanks, Paul.
Oh, a three-peat. Uh-oh.
Yeah. And anyway. and you know what's interesting was that last year when Australia played England in 5 one-day internationals here in the UK, England won all 5. And yet now that it comes to the World Cup year, Australia, they do this all the time. They have a way of winning.
Yeah.
And they
sandpaper in their britches.
Sorry?
That's right.
It's the sandpaper in their britches.
Yes. It's like England on Tuesday, they didn't play particularly well, and you wonder, is it the pressure getting to them? Is it the fact that they're the hosts, they're the favourites? Well, of course they're not the number one team anymore because they've lost recently against Sri Lanka and then Australia. They lost their number one status, and I believe that India have now taken over as the world's number one-day team. So. Let's wait and see. The big 2 games that England have got left. I mean, Australia have already qualified. India have virtually qualified because they beat West Indies yesterday. So England's final 2 games are against India on Sunday, and then I think it's possibly Tuesday, Wednesday next week they have to play New Zealand. So we wait and see what happens there, but. At the moment, England's place is at risk from Bangladesh and Pakistan in particular, and possibly Sri Lanka. But West Indies are definitely gone. They were beaten yesterday. They are definitely out of the competition. They cannot qualify. So it's interesting. We'll have to wait and see. I mean. One of the things that England have always been good at recently is, for want of a better word, bounce back ability. They very rarely lose 2 matches on the trot. So to have lost against Sri Lanka and then against Australia, and by the way, it was pretty close. It wasn't a whooping.
What? Come on. 62 runs. Come on, that's not close.
Well,
I whooped them. So.
England last year beat Australia at Trent Bridge by 250 runs. That was the biggest margin ever.
Well, they couldn't. Well, at that time they were in the midst of that scandal. They couldn't have the sandpaper in their britches then. That's why.
That's right.
Even to the tables out.
You're absolutely right, dude. They didn't have Steve Smith, David Warner playing for them there. They had been removed, and Australian cricket was in a little bit of turmoil. I must admit, I still don't like David Warner or Steve Smith, but I'll tell you who I do like. I do like Aaron Finch, and I will always. He's one of these. Who for me the star player for Australia is Glenn Maxwell.
Hey, I'm reminding you of the time, Mr. Capaldi.
Yeah.
This isn't Friday morning cricket session. This is about MAM.
Oh, right, sorry. Okay. First question. I've got here on the top here. What causes the occasional fallout between supporters? So, question for you, Mark, first.
I think we have this. I mean, we appreciate all supporters support, and everyone supports in different ways and has different styles. But we occasionally find this situation where some supporters are so black and white about their opinion that they are unaccepting of any other alternate opinion, and then take that unacceptance and turn it into personal attacks on those people who hold a different view to their own or a different style to their own. I mean, there's nothing wrong with everyone having different opinions, but we're all hopefully pursuing the same cause, that is the pursuit of justice for Stephen and Brendan, and Teresa as well. And when people start reverting to attacking people because they have a different style or focus, I just think that's very immature and says very little for the best interests of the boys.
Yep. Yeah. Dude, do you have an opinion on that?
On what exactly?
Yeah, I was going to say, do you want me to repeat the question? Bless you, by the way. What's it go? One's a wish, two's a kiss, three's a disappointment. I don't know what you're up to there with your sneezes. The question was, what causes the occasional sort of fallout, argument between supporters? Or should it be fans? I don't know. Are we supporters? Are we fans? What are we?
We're not fans. Seriously.
I'm not a fan. That's not what I'm here for.
No.
I'll tell you what, being a fan means kind of having a lot more fun. I mean, a lot of this sometimes isn't really fun, but it's gratifying.
Yes.
It's gratifying to be able to try to help someone who's not really in a position to be able to help themselves very much. So helping to be a voice for that person is there's a gratification that comes from it, even though it's kind of hard to do and maintain and keep up. Right. Yeah. And so that's what it's supposed to be about. But I think what happens a lot of times, at least recently, and happens a fair amount, or at least it seems to be happening more and more, is egos. Like egos are becoming a problem, and egos are clashing. And it's like ever since like 2 or 3 weeks before Mammothon, I've had another supporter out there who runs a support page for Stephen Avery, and this person has been saying negative things and being generally unpleasant since then. And I just keep ignoring it, hoping it'll just stop and that they'll realize that it's more important to support. It's more important to put Brendan and Stephen first, and that they'll eventually just stop. But it looks like, maybe not, and it's unfortunate because it's not about me. It's not about anybody in particular. This right now, the whole reason I'm here is like what I just previously stated. It's about trying to help two guys that are in a position where they don't have a voice, or at least not a very powerful one. And so to have other people out there in the wider world helping to create awareness of what they're going through is the important thing. I think the fighting amongst each other that happens, that we kind of get caught up in sometimes, it only makes us look trashy. It only takes away from the message we're trying to spread and the idea that we're trying to, convey. And so that I hope eventually a lot of this clash will eventually kind of resolve and people will realize what's important and try to focus on the similarities and less on the differences.
Well, good answer. Also, what I suppose would ask is, could it be that because we feel so badly for Steve and Brendan about what's happened to them, and we get so annoyed at the way the system is treating them, could that be part of our frustration that we've nobody really to take it out on, and unfortunately we sometimes take it out on other people, as you mentioned, Mark. Some people that they only like to hear their own opinion being expressed.
It is a frustrating thing.
My view about that is that we're all mature adults, or at least we should be, if you can't deal with these things in a mature way, don't be involved in the public dissemination of ill-gotten discontent with our fellow supporters. I mean, either behave maturely or take a break. It's really that simple. We're very critical. We all are very critical of, the state and law enforcement generally about the way they behaved. Right now, it's a professional or unprofessional behaviour that we're critical of, and we're talking about personal behaviour here. So, people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. We need to behave professionally. And the way you do that is to respect an alternate view. You don't have to agree with it. In fact, you can totally disagree with it. But it shouldn't disseminate into personal attacks on individual people. And we need to be open in our views about possibilities. That's as I've said before, the one thing that we quite rightly criticise law enforcement for not being open about possibilities of other people other than Stephen and Brendan, but other than Stephen being, the one they're after. So, anyway, I'm even bored with myself because I talk about this stuff all the time, right? So, but if you can't play the game respectfully and don't play it, that's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
Something I said to the film crew about the way I run my channel. I was like, I go, and on my channel, guilters are welcome to come and comment and do whatever. I go, so long as they can make their points without insulting anybody, and they're not vulgar. I go, if they can meet those two requirements, they're free to say and offer their opinion, or stay and offer their opinion. And that sort of stuff. And I could tell the guy was a little bit shocked when he heard me say that. I'm like, I'm not sure. I don't like to shut myself off from what the other side's thinking. I actually like to kind of have my kind of ear to the ground on that.
Yeah.
So
excellent. Moving on very swiftly. Next question: how is the coffee in Romania?
Crap.
Is it? Oh dear. Is it as bad as that? Because I tell you, it took us ages to find it. I was apologising the last chat to the dude about the fact that now I understand why he doesn't drink coffee, because we struggled to find a decent one. And I really wish Stacey would have come on and discussed with us, because he's a real coffee aficionado, isn't he?
He is. It's an interesting analogy. Everyone has their own opinion. Everyone has their own coffee, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
Whether it's in the United States or in Romania or any other nation in the world, they have the coffee that they're used to and that they like, or Dr. Pepper in the case of Crunch Island. So, but yeah. Anyway, I like the espresso style of coffee, and
yes.
So that's if that's not around, I'll drink the other stuff if I have to, but yeah.
I do have this one given to me by JB.
Yeah. What you want to do is put that can of Dr. Pepper up again, but if you're talking at the same time, then the screen actually.
Oh, you want everybody to see it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, but talk at the same time.
Yes. All right, there you go, folks. That's the cup of coffee that of Erekose's choice.
Lights up.
That's its poison.
Yeah.
I actually find coffee to be bitter, and then like the taste like sticks around for an hour, and I hate it.
See, the thing is, we just couldn't find anything that was sort of strong enough, had any taste to it. So it was. I mean, I don't know if we here in the UK we like instant coffee, but it's one called Erekose. It's the strongest Nescafe instant that you can get, and it's really good. Did you try it when you were here, Mark?
I can't remember. I mean, I mean, when you say here at your place,
yes.
Oh, I don't know. You were the host. Did you dish it up to me?
Well, I think we must have done, and I think if it wasn't any good, then you'd have probably remembered it, wouldn't you? You'd have probably thought, I'm not going there.
I would have been polite, Paul, and go, that's lovely. No,
Moving on swiftly.
Yes.
We've heard these tapes of some of the phone conversations between Steve and Jodi. And I really wanted, Mark, to ask you if you don't mind, if you're able to do so, to tell us anything that you've discussed on your visits to Steve about what he says about either Jodi or Lynn or even obviously Sandra Greenman, you know. And I'm hoping that you'll be able to tell us something about what, you know, just some of what you've been able to talk with Steve, and which you would be, both he and you would be happy to share with us.
Yeah, okay. Well, firstly, I should say from the beginning that anything I speak to you about Stephen and my visits with him would be with his approval. I would never discuss anything that I hadn't already got his okay to talk about.
Yeah.
So it's important to keep that in mind. All right, so I'll just deal. I mean, let me see. There's so much in that question, but I'll deal with each element. Firstly, the issue about the phone call.
So, like, the question, if like, does he still not wear underwear? Is that one off limits? I'm sorry, I just had to be funny.
Who, you or me?
Yeah, that question's off limits. So
okay,
there you go. Okay, well, had to ask. Anyway.
I appreciate that it's late there in lunch in Los Angeles. So
yeah,
you probably
you trying to blame it on goofiness.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so let me go back to the question. Well, firstly, the calls generally between Jodi and Stephen, part of which we were already familiar with, albeit highly edited parts of the October 31 calls, two of them, one at 5:35 and one at 8:57, that are now, the full version of those calls and other calls have now been released. So I spoke to Stephen about those calls because I visited him on 5 occasions when I was there just the last week or two. And he was quite, as a little aside, he was quite amused because I was telling him some of the things he was saying. Very personal things he was saying, and Jodi in return. So he had a bit of a chuckle about those. But
yeah, I said, well, I have a feeling you're talking about BJ's.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. He goes, oh, you know. So, but you know, he's cool. He doesn't sort of get worried about himself. You know. Yeah. So I guess
what he is.
I guess none of us would like all our phone calls taped and played publicly, would they?
Certainly not.
So,
certainly not.
But so anyway, so I spoke to him about the calls. The first thing I wanted to mention about the calls is that they go to the heart of that has been spoken of before, and that is, are these the conversations of a man that actually has just raped, murdered and mutilated and burnt a person, right?
Doesn't seem likely.
Unlikely,
Yeah, right.
So that's probably the most telling part about the calls, some of which we already were aware of. But I went to the specific issue because this was the thing that was circulating in social media at the time of me visiting him, about his mention in that call, the 9 o'clock call, I'll call it, about seeing Barb leaving her place, which is just in, 30 or 40 metres away from his own trailer. And so I was saying, well, people are saying that Barb never went over to Scott's place to watch Prison Break. And so I wanted to ask you a few questions about that. And he said, yeah, sure. And I said to him, when did Brendan go home after the bonfire? He said, I said about 20 to 9, maybe quarter to 9. And I go, okay. And I said, and by the way, he said at that stage, the fire had burnt down to ashes when he went home. It wasn't still in, flaming away. I said, well, when Brendan went home, was Barbara home? He goes, oh, no, she wasn't home when he went home. And I go, okay. And I said, and then he said, also, she rang me not long before he went home just to check on him,
yep.
Right, to see, and the other boys who were there. Go, okay. He said, well, how is it that seemingly 15 or 20 minutes or whatever time later, you're making a comment that there goes Barb leaving again? And
It's actually only about 8 or 9 minutes into the call, so it would have been about 9:07.
No, I'm talking about when Brendan went home about 20 to 9 or quarter to 9, and Stephen is stating Barbara wasn't home then.
Right.
So 15 or 20 minutes after that moment, he's stating in the call, "There goes Barb leaving again." I said, how do you reconcile that you're saying that when Barbara wasn't home? And he says, "Oh, well, she must have come home briefly and went out again." And Scott only lived 2 minutes up the road by car. So said, I can only assume she's come home to see the boys or check on the boys or
which wouldn't surprise me at all.
No, or pick something up. Who knows what?
Something she needed work that she forgot, maybe. Who knows? Yeah.
Who knows? I don't know. And so I thought to myself, well, that's a plausible explanation as to why he saw her go out. That's a plausible explanation as to why she was already out. And by the way, the Prison Break show that they were watching was a 2-hour show that night from 7 till 9, 7 till 8, and then 8 till 9. So she could have come home after the second episode and gone back to Scott's. Now, did she? I don't know. Could Stephen's memory be faulty? Of course.
I mean, it would make sense she's showing up at that time. Literally, as the first show ended, she's running down to there to whatever it is she wants to check on or grab or whatever, right? And then it's about, when she's leaving, it's about 9:05, 9:04, 9:05, right? So she's trying to get back there and miss as little as possible of the second one, right? It would kind of make sense if she was trying to cram it into that particular spot because she would have the most time.
No, there's the show started at 7 till 8, 8 till 9. So if she's come home at 9.
So that would be after.
After, she may have just been going back to visiting Scott, because we know from what Stephen says that she was always going down to visit Scott. That was something she was always doing.
He says that in the call, yeah.
Yeah, he's only literally 2 minutes down the road by a car. So it's not a big ask.
It's not far, right.
So anyway, there's the possibility of what I've just described, which is me paraphrasing what Stephen has told me happened. His recollection of what happened, at least. Could he be mistaken? Possibly. Is he mistaken about Barb not being home when Brendan went home after the fire? Absolutely not. He's absolutely adamant she was not there, right? When Brendan went home after the fire. So
and that would be while Prison Break was still on, so that makes sense.
Yeah. So all I'm saying, without drawing any particular conclusion, is there's always multiple possibilities to stories. And we need not to be closed-minded about other possibilities. And who's right and who's wrong is not all as relevant as just be open-minded about what could possibly happen. So I thought to myself, well, there's a plausible explanation to me. And I don't know whether that answers your question on that element, Paul, about the call.
Sure.
On the October 31 call I'm talking about, the 9 o'clock call, right?
So, I mean, I suspect that the dude has probably got more questions about this than I have. For me, it's like, how could Steve possibly remember that evening, which was so uneventful? I mean, there was no murdering of Teresa Halbach going on anywhere near his caravan. So what little recollection he has of it, he regularly has a bonfire. So what? Brendan loves to come over. Brendan, clearly has a lot of time for Steve, hasn't he? They get on really well. I remember there was in one of the interviews, it was quite funny because they asked him about that Brendan, that is. They asked him about his uncle. And they say you get on really well, and he says, well, apart from that time when they wanted me to go to a party and everybody's trying to get me in the car, and eventually Barb shouts on Steve, will you come and help get Brendan in this big car so we can get to this party? So clearly that I mean, if you've grown up as Brendan had grown up, never knowing his uncle, knowing that he had an uncle, but never knowing him, and then for those, in effect, 2 years, he's next door. I mean, how good would that be, I can only imagine what it would be like for me if I had, you know, my uncle living next door that I hadn't seen for 14 years, and suddenly he's next door. Of course, you'd want to spend time with him, wouldn't you? You know.
See, Stephen is a very caring man.
Yeah.
He cares about people. He cares about family. He cares about doing the right thing. You know.
Yeah.
Sure. Can
I
he
believe
be
he
a
has
little
some
bit?
rough edges, but I believe that's all essentially true about him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's, you know, his willingness and desire to include Brendan in stuff that might be fun for him. It's just typically Stephen's character. So none of that. Oh, and actually, you might have recollected in my my discussion just a moment ago, is Stephen said the bonfire was down to ashes when he walked inside to talk to Jodi on the phone. So so much for the supposed, you know, incineration of Teresa Hallbach in a fire out the back, you know. So, but anyway, so I'll go back to the other part of the question, and that is Jodi herself and Lynn Hartman.
Well, before we go there,
yeah.
I was just going to say one more thing about this in terms of the call, because I got a video uploading right now. Well, it's uploaded, and I'm just deciding. I'm waiting on what time to premiere it, determining on what we do here. But I hear in that call, the way it sounds to me is that Stephen actually sees Barb at about 9:05, 9:06.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I don't know about all this other sinister stuff that a lot of other people are getting into about this. For me, it's actually, to me, a good thing that she is actually there at that time. Okay? This is supposed to be the time where he is, you know, supposed to be feverishly tending the fire and doing all these things to make this body burn up in a miraculous 3.5 hours or whatever that it's supposedly done in, right? So the fact that she's there again, and that there's no report of a smell, no report of anything out of the ordinary, none of that stuff. But I don't know. For me, I just like it. The fact that we see Barb there again that night, it's just, to me, there's too many people around for this to have been happening. Just, it's, you know.
Yeah, and it didn't happen. So, so if I go back, if I may,
yes, please,
to in regards to Jodi, which was part of your question.
Yep.
Obviously, at this time, that is in October 31st, 2005, and time period leading up, Stephen was very much in love with Jodi and would do anything to support and help her. Obviously, as times unfolded, Jodi had a drinking problem, as we know, a serious drinking problem that landed her
substance abuse issues. Yes.
Yeah. His view about her today is, well, he doesn't really have a view about her. She's not part of his life. She's made some bad comments about him in relatively recent times, but she was supporting him at the time of this whole matter going down, as we know. So, you know, he's moved on, in a sense. She's continued her same somewhat sad ways, as far as I'm aware. And so he doesn't really talk about her other than that's history. It's not dissimilar to the stories with Lynn Hartman. Same thing. He was besotted by her in the beginning, and he has absolutely no respect for her, what she's done to him, and effectively used him. So, but he doesn't dwell on those things. He doesn't build up, you know, anger. He just says, "Oh, I got taken advantage of. I was foolish." But you can understand how that can happen when you're locked up in a prison.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, they're not those two ladies. Even though they kind of occasionally come up, they're not really part of his normal thought patterns. So.
No. I mean, I'm right in thinking though that Sandy Greenman does visit Steve.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. In fact, I was regularly, and in fact, she came with me on my last visit just last Sunday.
Yeah.
I saw Stephen on Sunday with Sandra, and she goes and sees him regularly. They're very close. He speaks to her regularly, despite the change in their relationship over time. She's his most dedicated confidant and supporter, and just like we know Sandra to be, she's a wonderful woman, and Stephen's fortunate to have her as a friend, and he acknowledges that as well, and yeah, so it's nice.
Yeah, Sandra's great.
Yeah,
Stephen's lucky to have her.
indeed, very much so. So I hope that answers your question, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that I can't help thinking that he doesn't get that. Does he get many other male visitors that go along and see him?
No. In fact, I'm the only male visitor who's not family.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a maximum of 12 people permitted on his visitors list at any one time.
Mm-hmm.
The great majority of those, as I recollect, are all family.
Yep.
I think the male visitors who are on that list are his brothers and his dad, and I'm the only non-family male visitor. So, yeah.
The point being, it would be easier for him to discuss that sort of, his sort of past relations with non-family a lot easier than it would be to discuss with family,
Yeah, and plus, I mean, for good or for bad, I'll let others decide. I can bring a perspective to the matters without being influenced by family history or family politics or all that sort of jazz, even local Wisconsin politics. And I mean, I just bring an outside perspective. I like Steve for who Steve is. If he wasn't this well-known identity, he's the sort of guy that you would really like to have as your friend. He's a good guy, and so I think he values the fact that I am just that person. I'm just this outsider who has a lot of time for him, and enjoy his company, and obviously someone who's also very familiar with the case. So one of the things I've said before in the past, it occasionally sort of startles me when I think about it, and that is how much we all know more about the case than Steve does. Mm-hmm. Steve knows a lot, obviously, a real lot, and he's very
sitting through the trial, you'd think.
Yeah, but all the stuff that's gone on since that, because he doesn't have the same access to the media and social media that we do, we get a whole lot more texture and color to the whole thing than he ever does.
Yeah.
At best he gets are things people say to him over the phone or letters that are posted to him. He doesn't really get a chance to digest stuff on his own. He can't look at something and have a judgment about it on his own in a proper, broad contextual framework. So that's tough because when you and I and when we all have a look at information that's to hand and we want to have a comment about it, we're bringing in other things from our experiences, what we read here, who we spoke to there, what we looked at in those reports. It's difficult, if not impossible, for Stephen to do that. So he has a filtered, an unintended filtered access to information. So, but he's very actively involved in his case. He, I think, just before when I went over there to the rally, I think the first day I saw Stephen was the Thursday before the rally, and I think the day before that, or maybe it was the 2 days before that, Kathleen Zellner had been there to visit him to talk to him about things, and so Stephen is, as I say, very actively involved in his case matters.
Yeah. I was going to also ask Dude. I think you got to speak to Steve on the day of the rally, because I know that one or two of you came out and said, "Oh, Paul, did you get a chance to speak to Steve?" And I'm like, "Well, no, but that's fine."
I was looking for you.
I know you,
dudes. Yeah, Paul would not want to miss this. I'm like, where is he?
I kind of feel for Steve if he's got all these people at this rally and he's being handed the phone, speak to this. It's like, what do you say? What can he say? It could be a bit overwhelming at times. All these people want to speak. So what did he say to you then, dude?
Oh, he just said hi. I said, hey, dude, how you doing? And whatever. And he said, I'm Erekose. I'm making a murder, dude. So I was like, I hope you're enjoying some luxuries there. I hope we made some, made it possible for you to have a little bit more of a, comfortable stay while you're, obviously there where you don't want to be. And he kind of laughed or whatever. And I go, but seriously, dude, we are happy that we were able to help you guys out and everything. And he was like, yeah, I appreciate that. And, he was just being very kind of humble and nice and stuff. And then, as it does with Steven, the conversation kind of starts to run out. And so I was like, so I hear you're kicking my friend. I hear you kicking my friend Mark's butt at cards. He's like, oh yeah. And then I said, so then I was looking for Paul, couldn't find Paul. Then I went over and said, hey, Mark, here, it's Steven. And so then Mark got on there. First thing Mark said to him was, are you practicing?
He's pretty sharp at cards, I should hasten to add. So, yeah.
Yes, I would imagine. Yes, I do get the impression that they do play cards rather a lot. Because it's something for them to do. And yeah, the more you do it, the better you get at it, don't you? That's what practice does. So just wanted to rewind. On the Sunday, thanks, Mark. You took us to see some of the iconic places that I hadn't realised. And of course, on one occasion, you said you do realise. Yeah, I know. Well, you had to dash, dude. You had to go to Minneapolis. It was a shame because you suddenly
I gotta start taking some more time in my locations.
Yeah. Yes. And did you ever find the thing that was missing to do with your Progo?
GoPro.
No, I had to order new cables.
GoPro, Paul. Not Progo.
What did I say?
Progo.
I said a GoPro. Okay.
Think about going pro. Going pro.
Yeah,
that's where the name comes from. GoPro.
Okay. So, because you asked me on the Saturday, you actually sent me a message in the house. Hey, dude, did you pick up anything else in my room? And I'm like,
that was because I couldn't find my wallet.
Yes, yeah, but I deliberately picked up your phone after it had even rang. The alarm went at like 2:30.
Dude, when I'm wigging out, going, where the hell's my wallet? Before I found it, dude, I was like, I was thinking of any possibility. And I know you sometimes you get a little bit of that joking around kind of thing, and you might have. I was like, fuck, did he hide it?
No,
or something like that. No. I mean, dude, I don't know. But then I eventually found it. It had fallen underneath the bed.
Yeah,
fallen out of my bag and underneath the bed, and it was just like I was like, once I found it, I was like, okay.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have done that. It's a little bit like, I don't know if you can see it at the very top next to the rosette. I've got a sticker. Maybe I'll bring it down and show you.
Oh, brother.
Hey, Paul, don't forget also, I'm on a time limitation here, so.
Yeah. How long have you got? It's gonna
about 5 minutes.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions you want to ask me, so keep it in mind.
Well, I'm going to get onto it, but first of all, no, I certainly wouldn't have done anything with your phone other than to put it on charge, because I noticed that it was down to about 18%. Okay. And that's the sort of thing that I don't do. But no, here's the I don't know if you can see that. That's to do with my. Can you see what it says there?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So there's standards that dudes abide by, whereby we don't go messing about with other people's stuff. So no, I certainly wouldn't have done anything with your cable, but I'm just wondering if you left it by the computer.
No, it wasn't the cable. The cable disappeared through going through TSA.
So it was there 1 minute and gone the next.
Yeah. I had everything all collected. I had all the cables. I had it all collected on the little dresser where my TV was in my room.
Yeah.
I had it all collected there, and it all went into the bag. It's when TSA started going through my bag and stuff, and I was in kind of a rush because the plane was actually waiting for me. I don't know how the hell that happened. I was there pretty early. But anyway, so I'm going through there, and I don't know why, but they had basically opened up my bag entirely. One of them is putting it back together. Well, when I get home, my beard trimmer is gone and my GoPro cable is gone. They're just gone. And I'm just like, oh, what the hell? What happened there? You know, but
so you think one of the
whatever.
customs guys needed a beard trimmer and a GoPro cable?
I'm thinking they started. They picked up my little thing that had my trimmer in it, and
Yeah.
the GoPro cable was hanging onto it somehow and fell, and they just didn't even realize it because it's light, hit the ground. They on that concrete. They probably never noticed it fell. So that may have just gotten lost as they were deciding my beard trimmer was contraband.
Well, at least they're well-groomed security people. That's the main thing. So.
But the funny part is that she's zipping up my bag and everything. She's all, see, nothing, TSA is not so bad or whatever. And I looked at her and as I said it to her, the statement was true. I said, I've never had a problem with TSA. And then when I get home, I'm like, oh, I was having my first problem with TSA.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And what does TSA stand for?
Sorry?
Transport Safety Authority.
So is that like customs?
No, it's the security people at the airport. Yeah.
It's just to make sure dangerous stuff don't get on planes and blow them up, as happened in the past.
Scanning and security.
Yeah. Like we have to go through everywhere you go. You have to get your if you've got any kind of like a bag of like toiletries and stuff. They have to be a certain size in a plastic bag. You have to put them out. Yeah,
that's them.
Yeah. Okay. And if you remember, when we were going to Melbourne and back again, there was an issue with my bag because Eunice had left some tiny wee scissors in there.
Yeah,
and they actually had to get them out and measure them against his car to see if they were within limits, and they were just by like 0.5 millimeter or something like that. So very quickly, I wanted to ask about this. One of the places that you said we had passed, Mark, on the Sunday was you did realise that we went past Zander Road. And I must admit, I must have gone past and not realised, because then on the way back, we stopped and I got a photograph of Zander Road. And I just want to go back to you, dude. I'm sure that in your Zander Road videos, you've mentioned the fact that for you, it would appear as though the plan was initially to have the bonfire at Zander Road, and that was where they were going to pin it on Steve by having, the address with Teresa's number on the back of it.
It's a potential theory, a thought that I had back then. Yeah.
But
that it might have been the original planned site, but that it was abandoned rather quickly.
Well, could it have been that yes, that is genuinely where the initial burning took place? We've got Paul Metz with his foul smell, the whoosh, the cattle running everywhere, and it was only when they realised, hold on a sec, we've struck lucky. Steve had a bonfire at his house at the same time.
Yeah.
Yep. And Zander Road is so
close,
far.
From 4.5 miles north. Due north.
It's a long way.
4.5 miles. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
as the crow flies.
Yeah,
by
that's
streets,
right.
It's a little longer.
Yeah. Well, it runs east-west a long way. Like a lot of those Wisconsin roads, they just it's like most of the roads are in grid pattern there, and they run forever, right?
Yes.
So Zander Road West and Zander Road East could be like 10 miles apart, right?
Yes.
But still Zander Road. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but when I look on Google Earth and do the certainly Manitowoc County at a certain resolution, it just looks like a printed circuit board.
Yeah.
It just looks like a crossword or something, But no, sorry. What I meant was by so near is that it was near enough in a car. You would get there in 5 minutes. Have the fire there.
Well, potentially, I guess, or maybe 10 minutes, but
but
in any event, it's a theory that could have legs.
Maybe,
but don't you find that the whole thing quite remarkable that we contemplate these scenarios when deep down we obviously realize this is all made up, right? So we almost give it a life that it never had in its own circumstance. So yeah.
The only life I give it is that it's my only fire in the area. It's the day after the 31st, but it's the only fire, and actually it wasn't the same night, by the way, Paul.
All right.
The Mets situation happened on the 1st, but for me, it's the only fire in the area reported to have a foul smell in that time frame. And that's really what drew me to the Xander Road thing. That's what caused me to go ahead and build up my theorizing around it. But I based a lot of that theorizing on as much fact that I could get from, the case documents and that sort of stuff as possible. So,
Yeah.
Right. Now, Mark, did you say that you need to...
I need to go.
You need to go.
But I'm going to leave you with a couple of little tidbits that perhaps we can have in another discussion. Firstly, as you know, I had a trip up to Griffiths and stayed with Alan overnight there. I'll tell you more about that in another get together.
Apparently, he's talking Aussie now.
Yeah.
Every time he sees you, good day.
Penn Muldoon gave him some really lovely, like an Aussie hat and a beer holder. And I gave him that. I think there was a photo on Facebook with it. There's a photo of him wearing an Aussie sort of zip-up jacket.
Yep.
Which was mine, which I gave to him, which he quite liked. So,
good.
But and also just for Mr. Erekose's benefit, I also now have a post-Manitowoc journey home travel story at the airport that will probably surpass his. Which involved me getting back to Romania a day later than I should have. So, due to some, guess what?
Weather
delays. Some weather delays in Chicago that meant my plane left Green Bay
in the Windy City.
Right.
Never.
Which mean my plane left Green Bay 2.5 hours later, and therefore I missed my connection back to London and so on. So the knock-on effect of that. So, but there's always a good
so you had to wait a whole
there.
day for another flight to London.
Next morning I had to go. So I was due to fly out about 9:45, I think, and I didn't get out till 9 a.m. the next morning. So the wanderer. I just wandered around Chicago Airport most of that time. So. Anyway, I'll save that story for another time. So
it's a big airport, isn't it?
Massive.
It's got like 5 terminals. It's as big as Heathrow, isn't it?
Yeah, I think in terms of aircraft movements, I think it's the US's and therefore the world's most busiest airport. I think I'm right. Well, it'd be close to it if it's not.
Yeah.
So.
I must admit, I found it an absolute doddle. Getting there and then getting to the hire car. It was all well planned out. You just, that you got the bus that takes you to where all the hire cars are. Got sorted out. Got on the road. Okay, went the wrong way for a couple of miles. Stopped at a filling station. Got some juice. Got Eunice a couple of beers. Everything sorted. Back on the right road. 3.5 hours later, we're in Manitowoc.
Oh God, you're a crazy man.
I know. He's driving with open containers, Mark. I'm just like, oh, you're so freaking lucky, dude.
Yeah. I'm gonna let Mark go, and I've got one more question for you, dude.
Okay. We got a premiere in 20 minutes, so we got time for one more question, maybe just barely.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent.
Hey guys. All right.
Yeah, cheers,
hey, Mark.
Thanks.
See you, buddy.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
Thanks very much.
Good to see you.
Yeah. So, but my question would be, your opinions on Barb. What does Barb know about what happened to Teresa?
What does Barb know about what happened to okay, personally, in my opinion, I don't think Barb knows really much of anything.
Same here.
I think Barb, in every aspect of this entire situation, it was bigger than she was. She was not equipped to handle it. I believe she was overwhelmed. I believe it caused her to make some very, very bad decisions that she didn't realize. She just didn't have the experience to realize were bad decisions at the time. But I'm sure now hindsight has taught her maybe a few lessons. But knowing it now doesn't make it different then. So, I think when it comes down to it, she was just overwhelmed, bewildered by the whole thing. Possibly did make a few decisions here and there that were less than the best, maybe. But I don't think she was ever really part of anything sinister herself or anything like that. She may have a case of really wanting to look the other way and not acknowledge certain things. She may have a strong instinct in her, possibly, to do that. But when it comes down to it, I think she was just, bullied and overwhelmed by almost every aspect of the investigation and all that sort of stuff, personally. And I just, there's another aspect that people need to also consider is this. If you don't really have proof of something that Barb did, if you're just railing and talking on and on and on without any real evidence of her doing something wrong, you got to think about Brendan for a second. I mean, if you're here because you support Brendan and Steven, well, then you kind of got to think about that for a second. Because for Brendan, Barb is the center of his universe. Okay? Barb's the center of the universe for Brendan right now because that's his mom. She comes and visits him more than anybody else and all that. So he's the center of the universe, or she is for him.
Yeah.
Right? And you want to go and start tearing down his mom so that he can be hearing about that. And so that he can be getting depressed about people attacking his mother and all these sort of things. Look, I don't feel that there's enough credible anything there to warrant putting Brendan through that. Nothing but a bunch of guesswork and, not unclear, assumptions, really. So that's all I see anyway.
Yeah, I think.
I said earlier, I think it's a good thing that Steve saw Barb around 9:00. That just means there's one more person there at the time when all this crap was supposed to be happening.
Exactly.
And you know what I mean? So, yeah. So, go ahead.
No, I totally agree with you that it definitely is a case of for me. I don't know how I would handle, a similar situation. And dare I say, I know that or I get the distinct impression that when it comes to Barb, she kind of struggles with that, but she's, completely in support of Steve and Brendan and Steve, isn't she? I mean, I keep going back to that image of Steve getting out in 2003, and he's got his daughter in one hand and Barb in the other.
Mm-hmm.
It's for me that's a powerful image. I'm sure that. They even though they kind of shouted at one another on the phone, they're still, they're still brother and sister.
I grew up in a family like that, so I can understand that actually.
Yeah. No, I do think that yes, that as you said, there is a strong possibility that there are certain things that it can be a case of turning a blind eye to, but most importantly, it is the fact that there was so much pressure put on them by the Wiegert, Fassbender, the rest of the investigators. If you remember at the beginning of the interview on May 13th. Wiegert and Fassbender introduced themselves to Brendan and say, you remember us, yeah? Now I know you've been having a hard time of it, but, we're not here to get in your face because there's been an incident, hasn't there, where, was it Barb and Blaine were in a restaurant?
Well, I'd heard that Blaine and Fassbender got into it at Fox Hills. Is what I heard.
Right.
That they'd had a heated exchange, apparently.
Yeah.
Blaine strikes me as a strong-willed kid.
Yeah. Can I just point out something? I don't need mods. People can put what they like. If it makes them look stupid and silly and immature, fine, just carry on, because I'm just laughing my socks out at some of the stuff that people are putting on here. You know, it's look, if you feel the need to put some comment on, fine, put a comment on. I really can't be bothered with all this side chat. I would you know, I realize that people come on and they want to do a bit of chat. Yes, I'm watching what's going on. I don't need any mods. You know, you can put what you like. I'm here to discuss with Erekose. If you want to listen to what we're talking about, fine. If you want to chat, fine. Honestly, I'm big enough and ugly enough to not take exception to any kind of comments that's going on here. Okay, and I don't know what you think about that, dude. But
are you responding to the "Are there no mods here"?
No, well, no. It was also that earlier there was a couple of supporters that were having a go at one another, and I'm watching it all, and I'm thinking this is exactly what we started off with when I asked the question: what causes fallout between supporters? And I thought we'd address that and explain. You know, people feel it so badly, and they've got their own opinion about it that they feel so strongly about. You know, which partly explains the reason why when for example you and me get together and you know like we'll chat to one another, when we get together we hurl abuse at one another because it's our way of letting off steam, which it's not to be taken too seriously. I suspect at first you were a bit taken aback at some of the stuff I was saying to you, but it's
not really. I mean, my little brother is pretty much the same way.
Yes.
A little more crude, though. I'll say that. My brother's a bit more crude than you are. So.
All right. Well, I tried to be respectful, but I watched the video again of the recent one that we did. That was it. Denise took of us at the Rally House on the Saturday night.
Right. There's two of them. Yeah. There's one where you challenged me to a dance off, and the second one is Paul dances the night away or something. I don't know.
I know.
There's two different ones, but anyway.
Now I've got somebody here who was looking forward to seeing Mark.
It's obviously.
Uh-oh.
No.
Mark had to leave 5 minutes ago, unfortunately.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
He's actually in Transylvania.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
All right.
Transylvania.
Yeah,
it's actually because the sun's just coming up there right now. Yeah. He has to slip into his coffin at this point. So that's
he's gone for some. But he sent me that one ages back. You remember that?
Hey, there you go. Nice.
Yeah.
It had a beer in it.
This is the Dracula juice. It's all gone now, though. But I think he goes back and sort of refills his and takes it around with him.
Get some fish.
Did you not have to? That's it. Where his sort of coffin lies, which he sleeps in, there has to be some soil, doesn't there, from Transylvania? You know.
Right, something like that. I think. Yeah, that's.
Wherever he goes in the world, there's got to be this. It's soil in with him. Otherwise, he could sort of wait, you know.
He's like Captain Jack Sparrow in Pirates of the Caribbean 2 with his jar of dirt. I don't know. Anyways.
Anyway, we've been usurped. Everybody's asking how Eunice is. So how are you, Eunice? Are you hungover?
Not hungover. No. I wasn't drinking last night.
The night before?
The night before, yeah. I was thinking.
But, is that when she was running off with the hippie gypsies?
Yeah, that was it.
Yes.
That was it. Yeah, that was good, wasn't it? It's our festival this week, so there's something on every night for me, and it's quite hard going because we're still at work. Still got today and Monday and Tuesday to go. Usually we're finished by now, but it was Yeah, it's been hard going. Just tomorrow is a really big day, so just got that to go tomorrow. So looking forward to it. Hi,
Right.
Stevie. Hi.
Come on, dude, join in.
It's Austin Powers.
Right, enough of that. Otherwise, it'll be a video will get banned again by YouTube.
Right.
Thanks, Linda. You're a wonderful woman as well.
Right, dude, you've got a premiere coming up very shortly.
Yes, within 8 minutes.
Just quickly, could you give us a quick introduction as to what you're going to be?
Okay, so yes, what this video is going to be centering around is Bobby Dassey and Scott Taddick.
Right.
I know a bunch of people just went, yay! Okay, so that's what it's talking about. There's going to be one thing about Bobby that I'm putting in there because it's something I just saw recently, and I just went, like, it just made me, it got under my skin, put it that way. And it has to do with something Bobby was doing on the internet, on Brendan's MSN Messenger, and it just really pissed me the hell off. The next thing is going to be regarding a statement made by Scott Taddick, where he says that Barb came over to his house around 8 o'clock and that she never left.
Right.
And then I'm going to play a clip from the call with Stephen and Jodi, where Stephen clearly says he's looking outside, he clearly says, and there she goes again, as if she's leaving right now. And then about a minute later, he says, yep, that's it. She's gone. He actually says that a second time. Right. So it would seem that she was there around 9 o'clock. For me, this is not, a lot of people see this as a problem. For me, this is not a problem. This is just one more person around when all of this crazy crap was supposed to be going down. And it's just one more person around that, kind of just further suggesting that none of this happened there. Wherever this happened to Teresa, it was somewhere far from Avery Salvage. So that's what I think, Barb being there at 9 o'clock, even though she's leaving to probably go back to Scott's, just the fact that she's present at that time, I think is actually good. Yeah. So,
I mean, Eunice, you met Barb for the first time, and you probably chatted more with her than I did, and also you were outside at the Baymont, even even got to speak to Mr. Taddick.
Yeah.
But what did you think of Barb?
I just felt quite sad for her because I can't imagine what it could possibly be like to see your son incarcerated at 16 years old and really feeling like she couldn't do anything about it, and felt really sad. Like, she was really upset that obviously had been questioned without a significant adult there, and how could that possibly happen? And at the time she was talking about the head teacher who hadn't even called her until the interview was going on. She didn't know anything. And she said, surely, like over here, for example, that if a child is to be questioned by police, the first thing you do is phone the adults before the police are allowed to see that child. And that's what she couldn't understand. And that's what, she said, maybe if there'd been somebody there that was responsible, then this wouldn't have got to this stage where it is at right now.
It's the same thing here with our federal courts. They're the same way.
Yeah.
If it's like Steve Moore, the FBI agent, was on my channel. He talked about it. He's like, he would have to call, if he had a juvenile, he would have to call the U.S. District Attorney. He would have to say, look, I have a 16-year-old kid here. Maybe seems like he might have some maybe possible learning issues or mental, impairments or something like that, right? And immediately they're going to say, oh, okay, well, we need to get an advocate out there. We need to, make his parents aware. It's like they have a whole, protocol.
Yeah.
They don't wait for somebody else to tell them they need to do it. They just do it. Because they don't want to end up in court and have it all fall apart. And so they conduct themselves the right way to begin with. And I think that's brilliant. And hopefully, not likely, as long as we got stupid AEDPA, letting the states remain lax. But we need to get the states to be on that kind of a level, like the federal district attorneys are. But yeah, like I said, with AEDPA right now, the states have no reason to try to up their standards because they just figure, you know what? We'll just keep carrying on the way we are in AEDPA. We can just go to federal court and say AEDPA and walk out. Never have to be held accountable for anything.
Yeah. I mean, certainly, sorry, I'll want to mention, do watch 13th on Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
That is by that Linda Avney, who
the lady that did Central Park Tower, When They See Us.
It's an hour and a half, but it is absolutely brilliant, and it deals with the 13th Amendment, and it, you know, okay, it could be taken as being somewhat political,
right?
It's difficult to avoid that at times, isn't it?
Sure.
What I was going to say, though, was that there has certainly been suggestions amongst some people that some of the teachers at Brendan's school were quite happy with the idea of letting the investigators talk with Brendan. You know, they were quite happy about that they should come in, interview him, and you know. But yeah, going back to one of the tweets by Steve Drizzen when he was he did a, obviously him and Laura Narai did a tour of the UK last year and at the beginning of this year, and quite a few people from the audience who were police themselves and involved in law enforcement came up and I remember he tweeted about the fact that one guy said that if he had done the interview of Brendan Dassey the way that Regan and Fassbender had done it, he would be out of a job.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of countries in the world have developed a very evolved attitude towards juveniles in the criminal justice system, as they should. I can't tell you how embarrassing it is that here we just don't seem to see it yet. You know, it's just like, but
well,
you know,
as I say, watch the 13th because it didn't mention AEDPA specifically, but very interestingly, was Bill Clinton actually apologizing for his policies back when he was I'm going to say prime minister, when he was president. He actually apologizes for the fact that he got things wrong back then.
Right.
Anyway, would you like a cup of coffee?
No thanks, but it is 11:29, and
I've got jobs to do when I'm actually here. You know, I didn't get away with everything. Nice speaking, you guys. Take care, everybody.
We'll see ya.
I'm gonna let you go, dude.
Yeah, it's 11:29, so it's about to start. So everybody jump on over there, and
perfect.
We'll see you there.
Cheers, mate.
See you, buddy.
Bye for now. Bye-bye.